Alright guys, back with another video for you today. Givenchy has a new men's fragrance out. It's called Gentleman's Society. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this fragrance and do a rank list of all of the gentleman fragrances from the house of Givenchy. So if you're interested in finding out about this one, is it good? Is it bad? Is it just mediocre? Find out about it coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yeah, today we have a new fragrance from the house of Givenchy. So it seems like Givenchy is moving away from the Gentleman Givenchy series, and they've got this new series with new perfumers. At least that's what I'm seeing with this fragrance, because it doesn't smell like the previous collection, which includes this Gentleman Givenchy here, and of course the Reserve Privé, and a few other fragrances, because this Gentleman's Society smells totally different. And of course it's different perfumers as well. Nathalie Lorson and Olivier Cresp is no longer, or are no longer, the perfumers. And now with the Gentleman's Society we've got Karine Dubreuil-Sereni. You guys know her. She's done some great fragrances for men. And this is also in conjunction with Maïa Lernout. I'm familiar with Karine Dubreuil-Sereni much more than Maïa Lernout. I've seen Maïa's name come up as well. So this is considered a woody aromatic or woody floral fragrance. It's definitely woody. I can see the aromatics. I can see the floral touches in here as well. This is not your typical floral fragrance though. This is, after all, Narcissus or Daffodil. So it's got a very interesting smell. It smells kind of like spring, and also there's a bit of an animalic undertone with the flower. At least they don't capture it here in this fragrance. It's definitely yellow flower, but also has the greenish touches as well. So the price is really expensive. They've gone up in price. I think since COVID, prices are really skyrocketing on fragrances. This is a men's release, signature line, 100 ml for $130. So quite pricey for 100 ml. It is eau de parfum concentration though. And I would say it kind of has its robustness, but to me it performs more like an EDT. So the notes are cardamom, vanilla, narcissus, cedar, Palo Santo, and it features also Haitian, Madagascar, and Uruguayan Vetiver, along with sage. So those are the notes that are credited here. For me, when you first spray this fragrance, cardamom is prominent. I'm talking a lot about cardamom. Just did a video on pistachio by Diaz and Durga, which was also chock full of cardamom. Here the cardamom is pretty prominent when you first spray it. And at this time it kind of reminds me a little bit of La Nuit de l'Homme from YSL. So at that time I'm thinking, this is not truly original, but you know, it has other things going for it. It's not necessarily completely reminding me of YSL's La Nuit de l'Homme, but it did hint at it for sure, definitely did. But for me, the cardamom is pretty prominent here, and then of course the narcissus brings in the very interesting yellow floral touch to the fragrance. Kind of has light smokiness, a bit of, I would say, green herbal aromatic undertones with the flower, the daffodil or the narcissus. But for me, I don't think they're utilizing it like totally. I think it's there more as a supporting player rather than in your face narcissus, because remember in H24 from Hermes, which also utilizes the narcissus, it's definitely in your face there, and it takes on these characteristics of minerals and metallic touches. Here for me it's more aromatics and flowers with lots of woods. For me the fragrance is very, very woody, especially since the fact that they're using Palo Santo, cedar, and 3 kinds of vetiver. This is a very vetiver fragrance. So in the end, you also have some sweet touches from the vanilla, but it's not a vanillic fragrance. The iris is totally gone. It's not smelling like the other collection, as I said. It doesn't smell like this one whatsoever, but there's definitely a sexy factor about this one, which I quite like. When I first started wearing it, I liked it. It kind of reminded me of other fragrances, and I thought La Nuit de l'Homme, but there's also something else it reminds me of. There's definitely a powdery factor about this one, so I can't figure out what it is. I think it's a pretty good job, well done, but for me it's we're not breaking any new ground with this fragrance. It's not anything original. I've smelled things like this before. That's why it reminds me of a lot of other fragrances. But I think they did a good job with it. It's definitely very classy, and I could see a man wear this one day in and day out who doesn't want to dabble in niche fragrances and things like that, because I enjoy the smell. But in the end, it's not the kind of fragrance that I would actually reach for over and over and over again, because for me, it's not like the previous releases in this collection, especially the Gentleman Givenchy and Eau de Parfum. I think is a really great designer fragrance. But then again, I do like this Gentleman's Society, more than some of the other fragrances in this collection, and I'm going to tell you about it in this ranked list. But for me, I would use caution when I'm buying this one. I think it has a great smell. It's not anything groundbreaking, not anything original. It reminds me of some stuff. It doesn't smell as luxurious as some of the other fragrances like Gentleman Givenchy and also the Privé. The Privé smells really great as well. For me, they have similarities, the EDP and the Privé. I didn't get as good of a performance with the Privé as I did with the EDP. And EDP for me is what really started with this collection rather than the EDT. So I don't know. Are they going to go in a complete different direction? Is this something brand new? I can't figure out what's going on with this series because they're going right to an EDP of Society. And when they initially launched this collection in 2017, they went with an EDT, which I didn't care for. I liked it, but I don't think it's, you know, anything special, if that makes sense. Here, I'm kind of tossed and torn between the fact that I kind of like it, but I don't really love it. It's not a kind of fragrance I would reach for over and over again, but kind of like smelling it. So I don't know. I have to figure it out and decide much later. But for now, I'm in the middle of deciding if this is really something really all great or if it's just not worth getting. But what are you guys thinking about this fragrance? Have you enjoyed, I mean, have you smelled it and sampled it and enjoy it? And what do you think about the price? It's $130 now. Very pricey. It will eventually go to the discounters, obviously, but we're starting off pretty high with this fragrance, and fragrance prices have gone way up, unfortunately. And I don't know if this is going to move a lot of bottles or if it's not. Maybe it will. I don't know. But for me, it's a bit disappointing, unfortunately. So those are my thoughts on this one. I should say a little bit about how it wears on me. For me, it does have that kind of sexy factor about it, but in kind of a nouveau riche kind of a way. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it's got some elegance about it. When you first spray it, you get this kind of really luxurious smell, but then as the fragrance is drying down, it does become a little boring, a little more mass, and kind of something I don't really want to wear. But when you first spraying, that initial blast is really quite nice and definitely has this kind of like classy, luxurious smell to it. So again, that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm thinking I'm uncertain about it. I kind of like it and I kind of don't, if that makes sense. And I still think in the collection, Gentleman Givenchy is still #1, which I just revealed my #1 here. But what are your thoughts about Gentleman Society? Let me know, put a comment down, and now let's go ahead and get started with the rank list. So the collection started with Gentleman Givenchy and EDT here, and this launched in 2017. I remember when it launched, I reviewed it, and I was on my way to go on a trip to Europe, and it had just launched. I bought it, reviewed it, aired it, and then I took on a flight. But for me, I felt like this was a bit boring, a little too mass, and a little not really interesting, but I feel like it will do its job for people that like this kind of a fragrance. It's iris, it's pear, it's lavender, there's leather, cardamom, vanilla, patchouli. I think it doesn't really do it too much for me. That's why I've always ranked it low. But once the EDP came out, I was really excited about this collection. So the original in EDT, Gentleman Givenchy EDT, is at #7. And then we've got Gentleman Givenchy EDT Intense, which is a little more interesting than the original EDT. The EDT Intense does have a little more intense and some more substance to it. It's featuring notes of iris, there's cardamom, there's bergamot, basil, cedarwood, and coumarin. So in the end, it's kind of almost fougere-like with the, you know, coumarin and the basil acting and taking the place of something like lavender. So there's a bit of a barbershop-y edge to this fragrance. But in the end, it's basically an offspring of the EDT, which does, you know, become a little boring. But between the two, I much prefer the Gentleman Givenchy EDT Intense, but again, it's ranked way low, so it's in the bottom. I think when you guys go through the collection, you might rank it differently, but for me, that's how I'm feeling in this particular collection. And then moving on to #5, this is Gentleman Givenchy EDP Boisé. So when I first got this one, it was at the height of the pandemic because it was launched in early 2020. I felt like it was a great fragrance, but the more I wore it, the more I started hating it. And for me, the cacao idea sounds really good in this, but when I wear it, it becomes very metallic for some reason, and it kind of, I want cacao kind of going into a bit of gourmand direction because I like the idea of cacao, but I think something is clashing somewhere, especially when I'm wearing it, and it becomes a bit sharp, and I'm not experiencing the kind of gourmand-like aspect to the cacao in this. So that's why I'm kind of ranking it low here in this collection of fragrances from Givenchy. But I think this is closer to the EDP for sure than the EDT. GT, and I like that about it. It does have some more sexiness about it. The iris is definitely more pronounced. You do have the cacao. There's lots of woods. It is called Boisé after all, Gentleman Givenchy EDP Boisé. But for me, as I said, it does have that kind of sharpness which kind of turns me off a bit. So the more I wore this one, the more I experienced that. So this is Gentleman Givenchy EDP Boisé, and that's at number 5. And then moving on to number 4, it's Givenchy Gentleman Society. I decided to put this here because in the end, I'm still kind of torn. It's right in the middle. Do I like it? Do I don't like it? I don't understand it a little bit. I wanted something kind of unique and really, really original. It does become boring as it's drying down, but that initial blast is really great. I like the cardamom in it. I really enjoy cardamom. The more I smell it in fragrances, the more I'm enjoying it, and I enjoy the spice as well. And here, for me, I think the cardamom does some great things to the fragrance, but for me, all woody fragrances kind of tend to get boring. The vanilla is a bit minimal here. It doesn't really pop. And then that Narcissus is also not necessarily fully there. Although we do have the sage, which I did not mention earlier. It's there when you first spray it, but with the cardamom being so strong, it overpowers the sage. But either way, I'm still torn about it, so that's why I feel like Gentleman Society is perfectly at number 4. This one is probably going to turn off some of you guys. It might shock some of you others, and some of you that are into it, you might like it. But I put this list together, and then I realized that, well, I checked the Givenchy website quite frequently, and this fragrance was on the website, the USA website. It's not there anymore, but I decided to leave it here. I think it's still plentiful at the discounters. It's the original Givenchy Gentleman from 1973, I believe. So yeah, it's nothing like any of these fragrances, so it's going to be completely different, very old school, very classic, masculine, bad boy, animalic, patchouli, leather kind of a thing, which smells really, really fabulous for me. Really, really love it. But I'm putting it at 3 because I know it's a little tired. It's just, I'm ranking it against fragrances that are so different. I wanted to give it a shout out to it, but I'm putting it a little lower. But still, I feel like it's a great fragrance. I think the original is fantastic. And then we've got the Gentleman Givenchy Reserve Privé. And I really love the smell of this, but for me, it's very short-lived for some reason. It's very, very sexy. It's really great. It features iris, woods, amber, chestnut, whiskey, and bergamot. For me, there's subtle differences with the EDP and the Privé. Well, I shouldn't say very subtle, but they're subtle. They remind me of one another, which kind of feels like also it's a bit redundant, you know, to have this particular fragrance when they're so close. But I think the subtleties might do enough to warrant the purchase of Gentleman Givenchy Reserve Privé. Just be warned, it doesn't perform great on me. I mean, it's all designer fragrances anyway. They're not like beast mode anyway, but I get much more, you know, performance from the EDP, the original EDP, than I do with the Reserve Privé. That's why I put the Reserve Privé at number 2. And then finally, it's Gentleman Givenchy in EDP. I think this is what really did it for me. I think it's very classy. There's a sexiness about it. It's the vanilla tolu balsam combo with the orris butter. It's powdery in the end. The 3 together work really well, but then you also have to add the black pepper here. There's a bit of spice there, kind of aromatic fresh spice. Patchouli, benzoin, tonka beans, lavender, and cloves. I think it's a job well done by Nathalie Lorson and Olivier Cresp. They did a great job with this one. I think it's a great, solid designer masculine offering. It's not as disappointing as the Society. But yeah, that's why I'm putting this one at number 1. Let me know your thoughts on this compared to the Reserve Privé. Let me know if how you would rank this list, and do you guys like this one right here? Let me know. Put a comment down. But either way, guys, that's all I have for you today on the Gentleman Givenchy Society. Or it's actually Givenchy Gentleman Society. It gets a little confusing with all the different name changes, but what are your thoughts on the Gentleman Society? Let me know your thoughts, put some comments down. Are you interested in sampling it? Do other people like this fragrance? Do they not like it? And your thoughts on what you want to do. If you want to go buy a bottle, go check it out, and get excited about it and all that kind of stuff. Let me know, put a comment down below. But yeah, I'm still kind of torn about it, but it's kind of right down the middle. I'm just not really sure yet. Am I going to really grow into this fragrance, or is it going to kind of sit on the shelf and then just be forgotten about? I'll come back later on, but either way, that's my thoughts on these fragrances today. Let me know your thoughts on these fragrances. Put a comment down so I can find out Otherwise, please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So I left this fragrance off as a bonus because it's discontinued, right? This is the third fragrance in the Gentleman Givenchy series. It's the Cologne. Gentleman Givenchy Cologne. It came out after the EDT in 2017, EDP in 2018, and then the Cologne in 2019. And I think the Cologne was really, really fantastic. They did a great job with the creation of this fragrance. It smells fantastic. The iris and lemon and bergamot together with the petitgrain. Wow, really, really delicious. Really, really a great fragrance. Really perfect for the summertime because it also has ambroxan. There's vetiver, rosemary, and musk. And together it's really great. If you can get a bottle, get it. I have one backup bottle of this. I had bought a couple of testers online. As you can see, this is a tester. It's got the notes on the back. But yeah, if you have a bottle, cherish it because it's gone. Maybe they'll bring it back. Maybe they'll bring back something else. But I love the combination of the iris with all the citrusy touches. You know, it smells fantastic. And it's too bad it's gone. But that's Gentleman Givenchy Cologne. I left it off of the rank list because obviously it's discontinued. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good one. Bye-bye.